Hi there, and welcome to the Growth Execution Podcast. Here every week, we talk with experts about how you can build and grow your business. I'm delighted to be joined this week by Don from Accountability Now. Don, how you doing?
I am so good. Thank you so much for having me on. I love what you're focusing on and helping people kind of get over that hump. I just love this.
I know it's a genuine pleasure, and super excited to hear what you've got for us in terms of helping the listeners to grow and to build their own businesses too. But I'm interested always in kind of your journey. So you have at some stage, there would have been that moment where you go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to launch my own business. What was that like for you, and why?
Well, I'll tell you the story, and I'll tell it briefly. But here I was in my mid-20s. I was vice president of sales and marketing for this call center company in northern Utah, and we were about 15 million in size. I was about 70 pounds overweight, the 70 pounds heavier than I am now. Okay, I used to go to Taco Bell all the time, right? Like, this was my whole life, and I was traveling 25 times a year, and I was just frustrated and miserable. Right, my beautiful wife and kids, I never saw them. I didn't have any concept of work-life balance. It was like work, life balance. That was my life. And one day I was in this training room, just finished training these few employees, and I was sitting there just miserable thinking, man, this can't be what life's about. And I got this kind of moment of clarity that I needed to understand accountability better. And accountability to me is defined as the glue that ties commitment to results. That's how accountability works. And I created my little self program called the 4 C's of accountability, but it's for me. It wasn't for anybody else. It was just to help me get better in my life. And as I started to live it, I lost weight. I started to be more effective. I saw my wife more, and luckily she liked the thinner me, which was helpful. And because I was the boss, I made my employees start to memorize the 4 C's and live it. And they started to do better. And this business went from 15 million to 25 million up to almost 50 million over the next 3 years. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is something. I've got it. This is going to be great. And now I'm starting to get pretty cocky because I'm an executive with a program. And then right then my wife gets diagnosed with cancer, and she's fine now, but it was shocking, right? I'm in my mid-20s and my wife gets cancer. I'm the guy with the program. Like, that's not fair. And what got us through the next 2 years was the 4 C's, sticking to know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, and focusing on accomplishing those things, being accountable to it. And it was shortly after there, I remember telling my wife, I wouldn't wish this 2 years on my worst enemy. And at the same time, I wish everybody could just taste what this was like, because I'm a better entrepreneur, executive manager, husband, father, son, you name it. Everything's better now after we went through it. And so it was right after there, I decided I'm going to go into entrepreneurship mode. Even though I was on a fast track to president of that company, I thought I want to go be part of something else. And there was a small little startup in Utah that I joined as their chief operating officer and owner. I threw some money into it, and we decided to go full entrepreneurial. I was employee number 5, and we had a negative $10,000 run rate every month, which is not a business model I want your listeners to follow. Like, that's a terrible idea
for a very small period of time, but yeah, it doesn't go very far, does it?
And it was terrible. And then I jumped in thinking, hey, I'm this great executive. I have a program. I can save anything. And after 90 days, I'd made it worse. The business was doing worse, and I thought something's wrong. And I called my amazing wife on the way home and started complaining. This job sucks. This business sucks. This industry, I should have never left. And she said, this is almost word for word what she said. She said, Don, are you done complaining? And I said, yes. And she goes, good. I'm sick of it. Lucky for you, I didn't marry a loser. You've been complaining for weeks, and I'm tired of it. From now on, only talk to me about the solutions that you're going to do, or otherwise you're the problem. You have to focus on the solutions. You have to focus on the 4 C's. Then she hung up the phone. And she's amazing. And I did not call her every day because I didn't have good things to say every day. But when I did, she had a long background in executive leadership with some different companies. And so she would push me on what I knew. And I realized the brilliance of a coach in a startup mode. And I realized there's some real value in having somebody that can be external and push you on what you know, on what strategy you should do to get it moving. And it took us about a year and a half, but that negative $10,000 run rate grew to 1.5 million, got on the Inc. 5,000, and it was great. And that's how I started. I realized I'm going to be an entrepreneur from now on. This is the way to do it.
Fantastic. And many people listening to this right now will be kind of somewhere perhaps along that journey. You know, they're either sitting there, you know, not necessarily in the meeting room right now because everybody's atomized in various places, but perhaps
Yeah.
they're sitting at home staring at the wall going, what am I doing here? Why am I doing it? What do you think separates those that go for it from those that perhaps can't make that leap?
And this is going to be super cliche, and you hear it all the time, but it's this fear of failure. People have this paralyzing fear that what if I don't make it? And look, there's a real possibility you won't. I'm not going to be sit here and lie to you and say, well, if you're just persistent, you're always going to win. You won't. I've lost money at business. I've had businesses that didn't work. I've had ideas and things that we put in place that failed. But you can't be crippled by your fear of failure, because all that's going to do is ensure you never achieve anything. And that's the one thing. And I had to use a coach. I used my wife for a little bit, and then I actually hired a coach. I had somebody that would help me check myself and realize, hey, I'm not moving because I'm scared, or I'm not moving on this because I just am paralyzed by any number of fears. And that's what has helped. And so the people that understand that about themselves and invest in getting help to push them, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that really within all of us, there's that fear, right? There is that fear of looking stupid. There's that fear of failing. There's that fear of what if, and all those negatives crowd in.
That's right.
But I think you're right, that coaching side of things, and I've had a coach as well. I think they're brilliant. They're really good at kind of just giving you that underpinning of sense that says, right, what's the worst that can happen? All right, so this. And then once you start to visualize it, it's not so bad anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And I encourage people to find a coach that has experience in maybe their industry or in entrepreneurship. So many coaches define the model of they can't do, so they teach. And that is not the coach you should find. You should find a coach that, hey, I've answered payroll. I have built a business. I mean, one of my greatest experiences in when I was with that business was we couldn't make payroll. Like we couldn't. It was there was, and I was the only one who knew this. My wife didn't know it. Nobody that I knew on Monday when we're going to pay people, we weren't going to make payroll. So I had to start calling people that I knew, and I was peddling. I was really seriously straightforward peddling. I ended up calling our HRO company and called the CEO, and I said, look, here's my accounts receivable. Here's what's going to come in over the next month. I need you to help us float payroll. And he did.
Wow.
And if he hadn't done that, we would have been a disaster for the company, and we would have never survived. And I paid him back with interest, and he got plenty of good Christmas gifts for a long time. But that, when you're a coach, that's the experience that changes it, because you can say, I've been there. I know what it's like to make that peddling call and beg somebody for $120,000. Like, I know how terrifying that is, but it
Yeah.
gives you value.
And do you know what as well? And it's a great story. Thanks for sharing with us, because those are the moments that really kind of define you. And what you didn't do there, as you know, is you don't give up, right? You don't kind of sit there and just hide in the corner and go, shit, that this is however many people are just going to have to go without. You go and scrap, as we say.
Yeah, look, something I say in my coaching practice is everything is always figure outable,
Mm.
right? Every problem you could figure it out. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need a group of people to figure it out. And I encourage you to always start with yes and how rather than no. So if there's an idea or there's a problem or you have a payroll problem or something, you say, okay, how can I fix that? Rather than no, this is unfixable. It is the way that it is.
Yeah, and have you seen over the periods, perhaps particularly the pandemic in the last year or so, that there's been a marked shift in people's approaches to business, perhaps particularly entrepreneurs, or have you seen that it's very much all the same kind of thing, but people solving different problems?
Well, it's interesting how you asked that question. We were talking beforehand about the amount of small businesses growth there in London or England and Europe alone. Same stats, United States, where 60 something percent of businesses, more new businesses have started in the last 6 months, possibly than ever before. And I think it's because of part of that is people are one, like we've talked about, they lost their job and they wanted to be control of their own destiny. So that's number one. But number two, they're realizing that running a business virtually, whatever the business is actually a vehicle that is possible, and it's something that people want. And one of the things about creativity is, and this isn't my concept, this is from the book Creativity Inc. about Pixar, is that when you have friction, you actually increase your creativity. So when you are struggling to solve a problem, create friction. create barriers so it forces the adrenaline to go to the creative part of your brain. And we had now global friction where we couldn't go out, and the whole world was forced to think differently about old problems. And because of the friction, people started to get creative and say, God, you know what? I could create a delivery business. One of my clients, they were a brewery. They were, making beer. And then when the pandemic hit, their whole restaurant got shut down. We got on the phone, and within 48 hours, we had created a subscription model for their beer. And we started running Facebook ads that said, hey, just because you're stuck at home doesn't mean you should have bad beer. And people would pay $100 something a month, and we would just deliver beer to their home because they're sitting at home drinking, right?
Well,
And
yeah, exactly. Might as well be drinking that. And I
that's right.
love that. I love subscription models as well. I think that's just such a super example of how creativity comes out of situations that might otherwise be almost terminal.
That's right. Yeah, it is. You can't let changes, whether it's Facebook rule changes or Google changes, which will impact you if you're in internet business, or global pandemic changes, stop you. You have to start with, okay, this is figure outable.
Yeah.
And if I can figure it out, and this is one of the things, if you got, let's say, all your listeners that have ideas on napkins, they're like, oh, I just want to turn this into a business. The first thing is I would tell them, does the problem on the napkin, does it solve somebody's pain? And if it does, you can make a business out of that. If there's somebody that's struggling with that issue, they have problem awareness, you can turn a business out of that. As long as you focus on how you solve it, you can get it there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And keeping in mind that napkin, and I love the visualization of actually somebody just scribbling down on that napkin, this is what I want to do, or this is the problem I need to solve. And we spend a lot of time here at Grocery talking about kind of product concepts. So your why. So why are you doing this? What's kind of driver behind you? And I think that's a really important part of that kind of napkin, right? You've got this is the idea, but the why behind it is what drives you forward.
I love that you say that because I relate it to weight loss because so many people can relate to weight loss. If you wanted to lose weight and you didn't know why, the first couple of weeks, of course, you're going to get up and go to the gym or not eat donuts. But the minute it starts to get hard, then if you don't know your why, you're going to say, you know what, I'm just going to do something else. And that's why my whole business is called Accountability Now, is because we focus on these startups between napkin to 10 million. That's what I call it. And we spend so much time figuring out, why are you doing this? What are you really trying to accomplish? And we try to get that emotional connection tied to your end goal. And the tighter that bond, the more willing you are to get up at 5 a.m. and do things. Or like I'm up at, early morning here in the States to do this podcast with you, is because the why is so strong. I'll do whatever it takes to make this thing hum.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, and a great example to those that people who are perhaps struggling or facing challenges. I'm like you are. I'm a big fan of the getting up at whatever time it requires, and I think as well, it's almost the why is the important bit, and the how comes after. And if the how has to change, as it has done for many businesses over the course of the last year, how you go about achieving that is different, but the why doesn't. But you've just got to flip that how out.
Yeah, like your why becomes your North Star compass, right? Like, hey, I know where I'm going. How I get there is going to be different, right? I might go left there. I might run into obstacles. I might have to go over a hill. I might have to go through a river, but where it's pointing, that never changes, right? That is your compass, and compasses point north, the true north all the time. And this is broken, right? But it's always pointing true north, and that's your why. And I teach people, and just like you do in morning routines, all these things, you should write down your why every day. I write down my why every morning and every evening so that I can just always be reminding myself, hey, this is why I do calls at 10 o'clock at night, and also calls at 4 in the morning, and all these things, because my why is so strong.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that's great advice, and thanks for that, Don. So we're thinking very much around people who are launching businesses as well. Do you have some advice that you would kind of give to kind of new entrepreneurs? What's if there was one bit, and perhaps you would maybe give it to yourself back in the day? What would you say is some real the thing that you think most new entrepreneurs need to know?
The most there is this I don't want to call it arrogance, but there's something about us as human beings that we think, hey, if I'm an entrepreneur, I have to do this alone. If I bootstrap, that means I do it on my own. And if I could go back in time and tell myself when I was first starting, and I tell it to every other entrepreneur, stop trying to do it alone, right? You should, well, I call it a key accountability partner, right? You should have somebody that helps hold you accountable. If that's a coach, you should have a coach. And there's a million ways to get a coach without losing all your money. There's a great way to get a good coach to do that. Or you surround yourself with a network of people that can hold you accountable. But we have this mindset of, well, I did it on my own. I built it on my own. You still did. Even getting help, even having somebody coach you, the greatest successful entrepreneurs in history, from Elon Musk to Oprah, all have coaches.
Yes.
So why do you want to be different than them? Just copy what they're doing, and it'll get you through the hard days. It'll get you through the lean days, and it'll help you build your business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there are many entrepreneurs, and like you said, it's almost that kind of, you see a Steve Jobs and you forget about Wozniacki, and you know, there's all that sort of stuff. People don't allocate that effort to anybody apart from that one person, and yet they've always got a team around them. One of the things we talk about a lot here is a kind of personal board, which is where you kind of assemble almost kind of 3 or 4 people that fill your gaps. You know, so you've got
the exact same concept. That's brilliant. The personal board is the key accountability partners. And my wife did it for me at first, as the story I told. And that's when I decided I need to go invest in somebody. And I work with a guy out of Nebraska now that he's a former lieutenant colonel. He's the meanest guy in the world. Makes me feel like garbage. But he should, right? You should have a love-hate relationship with that personal board, right? If they're making you feel good, look, that's your mom and dad, right? You need people that make you feel like you're not doing enough. You need to do more. You need to attack the problem differently. And that's who you surround yourself with. I love your concept there.
Do you know what? It's so good. And you know, there are gaps, and the self-awareness is obviously a really key component and something that coach can really help you with, because that self-awareness side where you're starting to work, you know, what am I good at and what am I not so good at? And so I'm very optimistic, and will pretty much just, you know, I'm not very risk averse. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So I need somebody alongside me going, you sure that's a good idea? Really?
And you and I are the same way. Like, my problem is, like, hey, if it's a 50-50 chance, I'm putting a lot of money on rolling the dice.
Correct. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. And I have to have my coaches like, hey, you have stakeholders. You've got a business. Slow down. Right? Okay.
Have you had that conversation with your significant other?
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Brilliant. It is. There's good and bad to that. So that's true.
Fantastic. So thinking about sort of your sort of inspirations, you know, do you have somebody that you sort of look up to, or somebody that kind of that's really helped to guide you that others might be able to kind of share?
Yeah, there's one author that I read all of her stuff, Jen Sincero. She wrote the book series, you know, How to Be a Bad A, how to be, I don't cuss a lot, right? So how to be a bad A, how to be a bad A and make money, right? Okay. So she had this great series that really taught, and I still read her stuff, and I reread it all the time, because she teaches you about the concept of a personal board. Like you said, she talked about how that changed your life. She talks a lot about how you can always, it's always figure outable. And she teaches you about your concept and your relationship with money. And this is, entrepreneurs have got to understand, especially when the idea's on the napkin, they're going to want to spend all this time creating content, or let me create all this stuff first. And I come in and say, stop. We have to make the cash register ring as fast as possible. That's your mindset. Not about your great website, not about your great this. Who cares? Just sell it. Just get the cash register ring once, and it's going to create momentum. And Sincero really hits on that in her literature, and I love what she does. She does a great job.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, again, same page. The product marketing side of things is great and creative and wonderful, but it's the sales side that you really need to get motoring as soon as you can, because you know you need that. It's more than validation, right? Obviously, you need the cash, but by moving it from the napkin, which is kind of hobby stage, right, and into a business where you get that first sale, that's all important, because that tells you all you need to know that this is going to work.
And I love what you teach with the growth formula, like that it is math. It is like science, right? Like, hey, if you follow these steps, your likelihood of at least breaking even is significantly higher. And it's amazing to me how many people skip steps and then they get frustrated. They say, oh, well, my business never took off because the market dried up. Well, no, let's go back through it. Did you actually follow the formula that has been time tested and proven? And without fail, they don't. Yeah. They skipped it and tried to do something different. And that's why you failed. Not because the industry, it was your decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And again, if you focused in on the why, and if the why is that important to you, and that's the thing I think is anybody listening has really got to ask themselves, actually, is this strong enough inside you? Because as you've said, when times get tough, when things, when you're looking around going, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll, I don't know what I'm going to, are you going to make that call? Because it's that important. Are you going to put yourself out there and lay yourself down and go, look, I just need this help? Because that means that it's something you really are. You're going to walk over hot coal or whatever for.
That's beautiful. Amen. That's it. It is I call it the first domino, right? If you look at business as a whole set of dominoes, and if you knock over one, it'll knock over the rest. That first domino of that why, if you don't spend the work trying to figure, I don't care if you're a coach, realtor, starting a business, doing a new e-com business, if you don't spend the time to say, why am I going to go through this misery? Why am I going to do this? Right. And it can't be to get a Lambo, can't be to get a yacht. I mean, you've got to really, a lot of other ways to do that.
Yeah.
You know your why.
I'll come with the other stuff, provided you've got this first bit right. That
That's
first
right.
domino. And I love it.
And they always want to skip it. A lot of entrepreneurs want to skip. They're like, well, can't we just get to the Lambo? It doesn't work.
I've seen the one that I like. I've got the color. I've got all sorts.
Yeah. I'm ready. I'm staring at it every day. Okay, well, let's stare at something different. Let's get it going.
I love it. Yeah, you've got to step by step by step. Brilliant. Listen, Don, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. If you were to look around at businesses now, do you have a kind of idea of what the next big thing is? What's your futuristic sort of
every business, and I don't care if you're a brand new startup or you're established, you have to create some sort of virtual way to sell and communicate your product. And I've been helping door-to-door companies do this. I've been helping service delivery people create virtual viewing options or virtual. I've helped a massage group, this whole big massage chain, where they did virtual check-in. Right? You have to create. The pandemic has taught us, if you are not thinking in a virtual acquisition mode, your business is in danger of getting choked up. So whatever you're doing, create a virtual way for people to buy your service or acquire it or get engaged, because this ain't going away. This whole, world of Zoom and world of virtualization, it's here to stay. Kids now are going to live in this model, just like they adopted to text and now incorporate it into whatever your ideas and whatever your business is, and you will reap the benefits.
Yeah, that's so important. Thank you for sharing that. I think you're absolutely right. We kind of think it's sort of like a little blip and then it's going to go back to whatever old normal was, but you're absolutely right. That is so far now. And we've learned some great things, right? The fact that we're having this conversation right now, that is perhaps as a result of the whole changes that have happened across the world. So listen, Don, thanks very much indeed. Again, how can people get in touch with you if they want?
Thank you so much. Yeah, you can go to my website, accountabilitynow.net. I've got my book on there, which teaches the 4 C's. And I also have, because so many entrepreneurs and startups, they don't have the ability to afford a coach. And so I have a whole virtual coach program, $7 a month, where you can be in, you get all of my content, and then also one-on-ones with me. Super easy. I give it to startups at a super low rate because I've been there. I know when I was in the negatives, $10,000, I would have killed for the opportunity to have my team and myself training something. So if you go to accountabilitynow.net, you can get the book, you can sign up for the course, and it's the easiest thing to be a part of every single day.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you for that. And thank you for all your wisdom today as well. That's Don of Accountability Now. Do go and check out his website, accountabilitynow.net. This has been the Growth Execution Podcast. Super grateful to have you listening in. Anything you need, do join us, the Growth Execution Group on Facebook. We'll be back next week with more and more of your actionable tips, things that are going to really help you to launch and grow your business. For now, thanks again, Don.
Thank you so much. Great work.
Thank you. And we'll be back again next week. So if you're ready, let's get growing.